between what we are doing is manage our numbers and, for example, remove persons from the which we have a ward that we are doing at St. Joseph. And not only that ward, now we have the field hospital at St. Joseph, and we are now staffing the hospital.
Mr. Charles was not able to say when the field hospital would be in place at Spanish Town.
I can't tell you the exact date. What is happening
7 o'clock.
We are doing the construction, doing the
Normally
the
use
groundwork,
a little less than an hour
the hospital put in
to get
place.
to work
I
in
can't tell you
time.
exactly. Contractors have been made
No, I am
ready,
not
and I
sure
know that
what
the work
is
has
ahead of
started.
me.
Chairman of the
I'm seeing
Southeast
police,
Regional
I'm
Health
seeing
Authority, Wentworth Charles.
What looks like a wrecker.
For the second time this month, face-to-face classes have been suspended at Yallis High School in St.
Across the
Thomas because
road.
of COVID-19. Yallis High Principal Mark Malabva
So I'm not
last
really
night
sure
told
there's a
Radio
tree
Jamaica
limit the way
News
I can't
the decision was
properly.
made on the weekend after another student tested positive for the virus.
Discovery Bay currently.
I issued a press release. I've gotten confirmation that one other student
Near
has
the
tested
Herbalife
positive
Center.
for COVID-19. So that's a total of 4 persons
I'm not
tested
sure what is
positive
happening,
for
so I just have
COVID-19,
to
including staff personnel.
sit
It was
here and
deemed
wait
we deemed it best
until
to
whatever
suspend
is
classes
happening
so that we could do contact tracing and
is
sanitize some of those
completed.
areas that those persons would have come in contact with.
Yeah.
Principal of Yallis High, Mark Malabva, classes at the high school will resume on Thursday to facilitate internal exams. Yallis High reverted to online classes on February 1 after a student tested positive for COVID-19. Face-to-face classes resumed a week later. And Mr. Malabva says he is concerned about the disruption to face-to-face classes as the country grapples with the surge in COVID-19 cases.
The truth of the matter is we have to assess it based on the numbers. The numbers have been climbing steadily up. There has been a lot of debate within the public space as to whether or not we should suspend classes. That's, for me, it is coming to that point where we seriously have to consider whether or not we suspend face-to-face classes, given the numbers.
Principal of Yallis High School, Mark Malabva. School officials are upping the pressure on the government to urgently close the divide between students in rural and urban areas as online classes continue to be the main mode of delivery for lessons. The surge in COVID-19 cases has put a damper on plans to expand face-to-face classes, with some schools having to suspend in-person classes after reopening just last month. Elias Azan, the chairman of Monroe College, which is set to revert to online classes for the next 2 weeks, says rural schools are at a disadvantage as it relates to virtual learning.
Delivering an online learning system to our students is far more difficult than if we were a school in Kingston. First of all, we do not have fiber optics at Monroe College. No provider provides those fiber optics to Monroe College. Not available. And until and unless we get serious about putting a proper internet service nationally in Jamaica, then we are rubbishing what we say we are doing with education online.
Mr. Azan says it's unfair to rural children.
I know the Ministry of Education is doing the best they can, but I'm going to reiterate that until and unless we put the resources into the hands of the schools that need them, we will always be at a disadvantage in rural Jamaica. And it is not fair to the children because they have to sit the same exam at the same time and answer the same questions. So let's do something about that to deliver the same level of education nationally to every single child. And then we can come back and have a conversation.
Chairman of Monroe College in St. Elizabeth, Elias Azan. The United States faces a dark milestone despite a recent decline in COVID-19 cases as it prepares to mark a staggering 500,000 deaths this week. This comes nearly a year after the novel coronavirus pandemic upended the country with dueling public health and economic crises. The number of COVID-19 cases fell for the 5th straight week, and officials scrambled to inoculate the population. Despite the decline, the nation's top infectious disease official, Dr. Anthony Fauci, yesterday told CNN's State of the Union program that the U.S. is still going through a challenging period.
It's something that is historic. It's nothing like we've ever been through in the last 102 years since the 1918 influenza pandemic. People decades from now, Dana, are going to be talking about this as a terribly historic milestone, in the history of this country. To have these many people to have died from a respiratory-borne infection. It really is a terrible situation that we've been through and that we're still going through. And that's the reason why we keep insisting to continue with the public health measures, because we don't want this to get much worse than it already is.
Top U.S. infectious disease official Dr. Anthony Fauci. All schools in England are expected to reopen on March 8 as part of the Prime Minister's cautious four-part plan to lift the coronavirus lockdown. Boris Johnson will share his finalised roadmap with ministers today before unveiling it to members of Parliament and then leading a news conference. It is understood that up to 6 people or 2 households could be allowed to meet outdoors from March 29. Rules will be lifted in phases and 4 conditions must be met at each stage. It is understood that the first phase will be split into 2 parts. So far, more than 17.5 million people in the UK have received a vaccine since the rollout began in December last year. In Jamaica, attorney Nicole Gordon says the country remains in the dark regarding the terms under which the Amber Group was engaged to build the Jam COVID website and mobile application. A US-based technology publication last week revealed a weakness on the website and app, which left hundreds of thousands of travelers' data exposed. The government has countered, saying only about 700 travelers were affected and has since launched an investigation into the breach. However, Ms. Gordon says Jamaicans still do not know who in the government negotiated the contract.
When it is that the app was now done for free, do you even know the terms of engagement? Nothing in life is free. And so I've wondered about that. And one of the things I also wonder about, and you mentioned it, Chris, we don't even know who in the government is responsible for negotiating this contract. Who was responsible for engaging the contractor? And who was responsible for determining what the terms of engagement were? We don't know.
Attorney Nicole Gordon. The police say they used technology to nab 4 suspected robbers in downtown Kingston yesterday. It's reported that at about 11:45 a.m. a report was made to the Matildas Corner Police about a robbery in Norbrook St. Andrew. The complainant told the police that her cellular phone was stolen by men traveling in a car. Using the upgraded police radio network, the Matildas Corner Police shared information about the vehicle as well as information about the men's whereabouts, which was garnered through the use of technology. The Kingston Central Operational Support Team intercepted the motor vehicle on Orange Street. The 4 men were arrested and 2 cellular phones seized. The police have laid charges against the man accused of fatally chopping a woman in Clarendon last week. 55-year-old Dwayne Richards, a farmer of Crooked River, Clarendon, was charged on the weekend with the murder of 61-year-old Sharon Cole. Ms. Cole, a caregiver, was attacked and chopped to death while standing at a grocery store in Crooked River on Monday. Mr. Richards was captured a few days later after he fled to Kingston. The police reported that Ms. Cole had a dispute with Mr. Richards, who allegedly used a machete to chop her several times. The St. James Police have designated the Barnett Street Police Station as the quarantine point for individuals taken into custody in the parish. Head of the Community Safety and Security Branch, Deputy Superintendent Yvonne White-Powell, says as part of the division's infection prevention and control measures, individuals arrested and charged with a criminal offense are mandated to quarantine for 14 days at Barnett Street. They are then transferred to the general holding area at the Freeport lockup. DSP White-Powell says the police division has been taking the threat of the virus seriously, noting that strict adherence to the Jamaica Constabulary Force's COVID-19 prevention plan resulted in the early detection and containment of positive cases at the Freeport station. DSP White-Powell says a plan to deal with any possible surge in cases at police lockups in the parish has been in place since March last year. And finally, in the Bahamas, investigations are continuing following an incident in which a plane crashed in waters off North Cat Key on Saturday afternoon. 3 people were on board the plane. Preliminary information revealed that the single-engine aircraft with United States registration had an engine malfunction shortly after the plane left Cat Key en route to Grand Bahama International Airport. The 3 people were transported to Grand Bahama for medical evaluation. The extent of injuries were not disclosed. And those are the stories from the Radio Jamaica News Desk at this time. We now head to the streets, courtesy of ICWI, serving you as all they do. Derek Wells.
All right, thanks again, Paula. We're seeing a steady traffic now. The entire eastbound stretch of the Washington Boulevard seeing bumper-to-bumper conditions as the traffic flow from Mandela Highway increases now. Some more good news, however, as the road conditions in the Malines intersection, those were repaired finally over the weekend. However, the prep work that was done, the rain has washed out some of that white material that was placed in the squared-out potholes in the major intersection by Washington Boulevard and Malines Road. So it makes for a bumpy ride right now. Motorists will have to be on the lookout for those squared-out holes and slow down to proceed through them. Otherwise, it's still pretty good movement all the way up into the Don Robin Avenue and Concert Spring Road area at this time. Though bumper to bumper, it flows with some ease. Paula, back to you.
Thank you, Derek.
The warm, comforting taste of honey, rum, and lime. Benjamin's Honey Time, your source of vitamin C. Benjamin's, a trusted name for over a century.
The time at Benjamin's Honey Time is
17 minutes after 7 o'clock, time for the financial report. The Bank of Jamaica has projected labor market conditions will worsen over the next 2 quarters before improving in the subsequent quarters. The average unemployment rate over the March 2021 to December 2022 quarters is projected to fall to 9.9%. The employed labor force is projected to grow year over year, even while the labor force is projected to increase marginally. The anticipated increase in unemployment, particularly over the next 4 quarters, is lower than the previous projection, reflecting the trend in unemployment outturns. Notwithstanding, the central bank says unemployment is anticipated to remain generally above pre-COVID levels. Co-chairman of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, Keith Duncan, says Jamaica has not been benefiting from the deep technical analysis it had become accustomed to while it was part of the International Monetary Fund IMF program. He says EPOC has done its best to keep the government accountable, but noted that the technical analysis, which is required, will not be available until the Independent Fiscal Commission is established.
The IMF used to provide that deep analysis around the numbers, the fiscal reviews, look at the budgets, look at the projections to ensure that Jamaica's fiscal path is sound. Since Jamaica has emerged from the IMF program, that would have that deep review there would be a gap because EPOC does not perform that deep review. We do get the reports from the Bank of Jamaica, from the Ministry of Finance, and we do some level of analysis, but what the Independent Fiscal Commission is slated to do is to provide that deep analysis to protect the Jamaican taxpayers.
Co-chairman of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, Keith Duncan. The Senate earlier this month approved legislation that will establish the Independent Fiscal Commission. The committee will monitor compliance with Jamaica's fiscal rules, keep the public informed on economic matters based on a calendar, and provide independent analysis on fiscal policy developments. The United Nations Food Agency is reporting that global food prices rose for an 8th consecutive month in January. Prices were at their highest since July 2014 as economies continued to battle fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. Some governments are taking action to tackle surging domestic food prices, although such moves drive global values higher by reducing supplies for international markets. The consequence is already evident in grain prices such as corn hitting multi-year highs. In December, the World Bank said food price increases combined with reduced incomes had aggravated chronic and acute hunger, hitting vulnerable households in almost every country. In a statement, the Food and Agriculture Organization said worldwide cereal harvests remained on course for an annual record in 2020, but warned of a sharp fall in stocks and signaled unexpectedly large import demands from China. And finally, the US dollar is selling for an average $152.05. It's costing $121.47 for the Canadian dollar. $213.52 is the going rate for the pound sterling, and $186.77 for the euro. And that is today's financial report. It's now 21 minutes after 7, time for the Breakfast Sports Report.
Radio Jamaica, the leading sports reporter.
Good morning, Renardo.
Good morning, Paula. Good morning to our listeners, and welcome to your Breakfast Sports Report. Now, cricket is where we start, as an amazing hat-trick from off-spinner Andre McCarthy as part of his sensational figures of 6 for 16 propelled the Jamaica Scorpions to a stunning 51-run victory over Barbados Pride on Sunday, where it secured their place in the CG Insurance Super 50 semi-finals. Chasing 219 for victory, the Pride were well placed at 143 for 3 before sensationally losing their last 7 wickets for 26 runs to be dismissed for 167 in 41.1 overs. Fabian Allen also picked up 2 for 41.
Here we go. Yet again, what a moment in this match. Jamaica Scorpions and the man himself, Andre McCarthy, gets a hat-trick, and now they're in firm control.
And that was the moment. Hood made 51 and Justin Greaves at 36 for the Pride. Earlier batting first, the Scorpions were covered from Abra Curran's 87 for 8 in the 24th over to be dismissed for 218 in 45 overs. The recovery effort was led by Dean Smith.
That little car is what you call a Mini Cooper. Yeah.
We also shared in an 8
like a little plane in a little box. Very fast. Ruby Road just going to work at 7:21. It's not going to be early today. It's going to be very late. Ruby Road, I should say.
Restrictions based on sports due to the continued COVID-19 pandemic. The annual Sagicor Sigma Invitation Run took place on Sunday.
See that little Cooper down there?
Frustration has been going about the absence of live action, despite the Ministry of Sports dangling a proverbial carrot on February 5 that associations should apply for approval of their events on a case-by-case basis under the Disaster Risk Management Act. But some organizers have failed to even be acknowledged by the government ministries responsible for granting their approval. On Sunday, over 100 participants lined up for the popular Sigma Run, with others taking part virtually. And though it was a far cry from the thousands that would usually crowd the streets of Kingston, event organizer Alfred Francis said the hosting of the annual run provides an example for other associations.
Very innovative. Change those houses into mansions. Yeah, it is Duncan. Bypass. Gear Park now.
Other sporting organizers in their quest to convince the government to grant them approval. Jazan Harris of Jam Damas took the women's event in 23 minutes and 31 seconds. 18-year-old Chanel Sims was second in 25 minutes and 8 seconds, ahead of Arietta Martin of Rainforest Seafood 27 minutes and 41 seconds. The Calabar duo of Kevroy Benson and Rivalda Marshall featured in the men's event, with Benson winning in 17 minutes and 14 seconds. Cosiana Dunkley of Tax Administration was second in 17 minutes and 32 seconds, with Marshall third in 17 minutes and 39 seconds. Karen Madden, Radio Jamaica Sports.
That's Karen. National sprinter Julian Fort is calling for due importance to be placed on the staging of the USA Boys and Girls Athletics Championships this year, in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic. He's also hopeful of a strong showing in 2021, including competing at the Tokyo Olympics despite the continued restrictions brought on by the pandemic, both locally and internationally. Jeremy represents.
MVP sprinter Julian Fort is among a number of local-based senior athletes who are still waiting to get their 2021 seasons on the way, especially with an eye on competing at the Tokyo Olympics this summer. The 28-year-old has had to get used to the new norm of training with COVID-19 protocols in place. He wasn't able to compete as yet because of the continued restrictions in place by the Jamaican government, but he says he has been able to deal with the uncertainty much better than last year.
More normal than last year. Last year it was extremely new to everybody and nobody really knew how to handle it, but with following the protocol and all the recommendations that have been made to us on how to train, I think we are managing fairly well.
Fort has also welcomed the recent announcement by the government of a lifting of restrictions on some sporting disciplines on a case-by-case basis. The former Woolmer's Boys champs winner says he is particularly hopeful that the nation's juniors will get to compete, especially with champs being the nursery for Jamaican track and field.
It's a necessity for the athletes, not just even the senior athletes, but I feel for the athletes that are looking forward to compete at the Boys and Girls Championships. Being a high school athlete, I know what it's like to look forward to the champs. So I'm really happy that the government are doing things to make sure that athletes can get competition and that they can compete at champs.
And as for his own season, the Stephen Francis coached athlete who is aiming to make his second Olympic team explains why he remains confident of a busy season.
I try not to think about that. I just continue to put in the work in the event that we will get to compete. So I'm looking forward to every single competition that we get to do. But I can say for sure, knowing my coach, we will definitely get a chance to compete. Even if it's just among ourselves, we'll do it in a competition style environment. And so I'm just doing all that I need to do to prepare and make sure that I'm in the best when it comes to the games.
Fort, a 2016 Olympian, owns personal bests of 9.91 seconds and at 19.97 for the 100 and 200 meters respectively. Jermaine Brown reporting for Radio Jamaica Sports.
That's Jermaine with that story. Now, Jamaica's Danielle Williams produced the lifetime best effort to win the women's 60-meter hurdles at the American Track League indoor meeting in Fayetteville in the United States on Sunday. Williams sped to a personal best 7.86 seconds to win the event ahead of American Tonya Marshall 7.89 seconds. Another Jamaican in Raji Hamilton also produced a personal best of 1 minute 47.47 seconds to place fourth in the men's 800 meters behind the Kenyan winner Michael Surani, 1 minute 45.44 seconds. In football, leaders Manchester City remain 10 points clear atop the English Premier League after a 1-0 win over 10th place Arsenal on Sunday. Raheem Sterling's 7-minute goal saw Man City secure an 18th consecutive win this in all competitions to edge closer to a third league title in 4 years. Closest challenger and second place Manchester United moved to 49 points after getting past Newcastle 3-1 at home. Third place Leicester City, who are also on 49 points, scored a 2-1 away win over Aston Villa. And West Ham moved into the top 4 after edging Jose Mourinho's Tottenham Hotspurs 2-1 this at the Tottenham Stadium. Now EPL is at home. EPL action continues today with Brighton and Hove Albion hosting Crystal Palace starting at 3 p.m. Jamaica time. And finally, Serbia's Novak Djokovic captured his 9th Australian Open men's singles title and the 18th Grand Slam crown of his career with a comprehensive victory over Russia's Daniil Medvedev. The world number 1 edged Medvedev in a tight first set before pulling clear to complete an emphatic 7-5, 6-2, 6-2 triumph of the Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne. No player has won more Australian Open singles titles than Djokovic, who now stands at just 2 majors away from matching the record halls of Swiss star Roger Federer and Spanish great Rafael Nadal. And that's it for your Breakfast Sports Report. I'm Bernardo Brown. Good morning. It's back to you, Paula.
Thank you, Renardo. We recap Newsline 7. Development economist says the government facing a dilemma in trying to keep the economy open as COVID-19 cases continue to climb. Cornwall Regional Hospital runs out of bed spaces in the COVID-19 ward. Face-to-face classes suspended at Yallis High for a second time this month because of COVID-19. All schools in England expected to reopen on March 8 as part of the Prime Minister's cautious 4-part plan to lift the coronavirus lockdown. And police charge man accused of fatally chopping a woman in Clarendon.
Lasco Food Drink is everything you need to support your family's nutrition. Nutrition never tasted so good. Time by Lasco Food Drink is
7:31. And it's now time for Help Me Understand This a Little Bit More.
5 minutes.
Get your everyday immunity boost with Jamaica Mountain Peak Instant Ginger Turmeric Tea.
Jamaica Mountain Peak put turmeric in the ginger, the perfect blend of immunity booster. Build up the system and this if you move for a resilient nation of innovators. A natural cup of power, antioxidant, all healthy from the soothing. We're still healthy at together. Jamaica Mountain Peak put turmeric in the ginger. Your everyday immunity booster. Jamaica Mountain Peak Ginger Turmeric Teas. Available in supermarkets island-wide.
Help me understand this just a little bit more. To go through with it quickly for me this morning is Clive Mullins. Good morning to you, Clive.
Good morning, Francois. Good morning to you, listeners.
Here's where we are, Clive. We are 1 year into this, and it is unprecedented. I get that. And so we have to take that into consideration. But we're still 1 year into it. We are hearing that the situation with schools out of town is imbalanced because they don't have the internet. They don't have the internet distribution that would be necessary for not only the schools, but for the students in various parts of their community. And the question really is, all right, who's responsible? Do we depend on the private companies, the cellular companies, or does the government have to step in somewhere and say, all right, listen, I'm going to take over this part of it, which is impractical, I know, but how do we get past where we are because we're in a bad space?
Well, the fact of the matter is, Francois, is that it is in the national interest, if we're speaking about the digital society, to have full coverage with the internet. In the same way, it's our national interest to have coverage of electricity. We saw a partnership where the government stepped into those areas for rural electrification, for example, to ensure you had a kind of rollout. So you're going to have some places that are not, quote unquote, a rate of return that some becomes my favor. So you need to have that kind of partnership and
I don't overtake in this vicinity simply because I would have seen a number of fatal and serious accidents on this stretch of road.
What are the challenges?
No, that is enough to deter me from trying to overtake on this. Even if I can, I will not, because I believe some of those who met in an accident on this stretch of road would have believed that they could have completed their attempt to overtake
to achieve that
only to discover that
it's not that.
It is not as what they think it
with
was.
you in terms of concession. I don't see why anybody has to get any concession, because nobody don't want it for free. Everybody is willing to pay for it. They just can't get it. We can expand it to the point of not only is it the school children, business people who need to do banking, individuals who need to do banking, need to have the internet. So it needs to be there.
Yes, but concession in terms of upfront,
I will wait until,
because you will find that you require certain kind of infrastructure for certain areas and so on. So to make that attractive, you can say, all right, in terms of tax concessions, we can roll that out. Things like that, so you look at those permutations, because your objective is to get full coverage.
Police
and you're right, if you're earning revenue, then it goes without paying. But I'll give an example. It's going to electricity, for instance. There are some communities that are really off the beaten path, and sometimes one of the customers ask you for you to get access to that electricity. Yeah? So we can't deal with that. This is where electrification will step in and say, no, it is a good, they have to get it, and so we work our way around that. So that's what I'm thinking, and it is something which, and the whole world is going on. E-commerce, what have you. There's so many things that are going to be affected by the use of technology and the internet, and therefore that's the way of the go, you know. But it's possible. But I think the fact is that the demand now, especially unfortunately where the young people are concerned, the children are concerned, has brought a sharper focus to it, and the urgency that it has been driven to ensure that we get that objective met.
We have to get there, because if we're going to use the line, the children are our future, then they have to be educated and they have to be given every chance that they can get.
Absolutely. And you know, for example, it's not a question now of either or, in terms of face-to-face or internet. That's not it. Internet is a gift. I have an access now to a whole information highly. So even if we get to a face-to-face, the internet is critical to access so many things across the world. Okay? And that is why we have to put that kind of climate behind. I'm just thinking about what plans there are to roll this out, you know.
We gotta put pressure on them, Clive.
Yeah.
We will text you on the hotline and see how best we can educate ourselves. So thank you very much for chatting with me this morning. Clive Mullins, catch him on the hotline. Help me understand this just a little bit more, and we gotta say a big thank you to Jamaica Mountain Peak. Get your everyday immunity boost with Jamaica Mountain Peak Instant Ginger Turmeric Teas.
Life comes at you fast and it can hit hard. Apply for the credit union